for one central unit to manage all of these activities. So at this point, most of our departments are deciding how they want to deal with activity in their discipline. And we simply provide them the support that we can. The good news is that we have some surveys about effectiveness of advising, or how students feel about the process, or what they're getting out of it. And we are seeing some gains over the last few years when we have deployed our discipline faculty to make some different decisions about activities in their department and how to put students together with faculty. One of our discussions on campus is, as we start moving towards these activities and talking to students about things they should do to make them better when they leave the institution, we don't want a student just to say, I have a degree in sociology. We want them to say, when they leave the institution, I have a degree in sociology and I can do. And we want them to have an active do. We want them to be able to describe to an employer, a graduate school, or to whatever their next step is, that not only do they have a degree, but they have done something that indicates they have some skills that are immediately applicable. So we want them engaged in high impact practices such as internships and study abroad and undergraduate research and these types of things that are degree enhancements. So that's in addition to just getting the degree. They've got to get on the path, but once they're on the path, we want them to do things to make them more successful. So it caused our campus to think about the concept between class scheduling and actually academic advising, and that they're just simply two different things. Class scheduling is about enrolling in the right class and staying on the path. And academic advising is about helping that student maximize their opportunities while they're at the institution. Of course, you can't receive any academic advising if your class scheduling is not under control. So Larry's description of the different way that pathways are handled across the nation is a very important conversation. You can't go to the next step until the students are there. So you want to keep that in mind. Now, we have some tools on our campus that we're using that are helping us quite a bit with academic advising and some other issues with our at-risk students. We utilize predictive analytics. I'm sure a lot of you out here do that as well. And we have a couple of tools that we use. We have a predictive analytics that's very course specific to help a student pick a course that is both a course that student's likely to do well in and central to their degree program. And we also have a My Future predictive analytics that's a little bit more broad, where a student will pick a particular area in which they are interested in, and then the My Future will help suggest majors that they are likely to do well in. These tools are available to the students directly online. We had a lot of discussion on our campus about when these tools were deployed. How will this impact us? What is this going to do? How does this change how we behave in an office? How does this change how we talk with the student? It turns out that it is an excellent tool to prompt a conversation with the student about course selection and even degree selection. It's much more powerful than simply an interest inventory. An interest inventory is important. It's good for the students to know that which they're interested in studying, but it's also good for the students to know that which they're most likely to succeed. And these predictive analytics tools can help the students do that. Now, how do we use these tools? Well, in a regular advising session, where we're just picking classes, perhaps it's within our general education and they need a humanities class and they have 7 of them to choose from and they need to pick 2. We might look at the predictive analytics and say, hey, here's a course and it looks like you'll probably do well in this course because tens of thousands of other people with similar educational experiences as you have done well in this course. That's a little way that it's used. The larger way that it's used is trying to help students who are truly lost in finding their pathway. They need to be on a path, they can't find a path. They don't know which one to get on. They don't know what major they need to be. Some of them don't even know what meta major they need to be. So let me describe to you about our meta majors at Austin Peay. We talked a little bit, you heard a little bit earlier about what meta majors or broad areas look like. Our students at Austin Peay will either do one of two things when they apply. They declare a major, a very specific major, or they declare a meta major. If they're not prepared to declare a major, they will declare an area. And we have 7 or 8 of those, and they're, as we heard described earlier. It might be healthcare, it might be social sciences, it may be STEM pathway. So we do our best to help our students declare a major or a meta major. The truth is, most students aren't prepared to make that decision. That's the truth. It's very difficult to make that decision for most students. So we try to help them with some of our predictive analytics and give them some suggestions, point them in certain directions, try to help them make the incoming decision, because it is frankly overwhelming. We have over 100 majors at Austin Peay in a variety of different concentrations, and it is overwhelming to try to get a student to select what they want to do. What we do know at our institution, and it's probably similar to yours, and we saw the hands go up, we know that most students that come in and select their majors in the way I described change their majors probably by the end of the first term, and maybe change their majors 3 or 4 times. That's concerning. That means the student is having some issues. They're having some decision-making trouble. So what do we do to help those students? We're starting a new project this fall. We started it was kind of a false start last year. I'll tell you what didn't work out, and then I'll tell you how we're changing it this year. We decided last year that we would look at students who had failed 2 of their key courses in their major. Courses that we know from predictive analytics, they have to make a B or higher in order to have a strong likelihood of graduating in that degree program. We decided we would grab the students who had not done that. We were not ready yet to say, you have to change your major. Larry's was at Florida, that was there, they say that, you don't have a choice, you have to change your major. We were not ready to do that yet, and we're still not ready to do that yet. But here's what we're ready to do. We're ready to grab those students and develop a redirect advising program for them, and we did that last year. We spent a lot of time on development of a redirect advising program, and we based what the conversation with those students should be on 2 things. We based the conversation on the stages of grief and motivational interviewing. Because if you need to be redirected, you have lost something. So we spent a lot of time talking about what this would look like, and we were all geared up. We had 5 advisors ready for this experience. They were going to hit about 150 students, and then we're going to see how things went. So we contacted these 150 students and had them come in, and these were the students who had not made the grade they needed in the key courses for their major, and every single one of them said, oh yeah, I know I'm in the wrong major. We were completely deflated because we had spent all this great time developing this wonderful program to get these students to make a different decision. They'd already made a different decision, but most of them hadn't taken the time to change their major. So we realized a couple of things. One, they need to know how to change their major. They were in a holding pattern. They just didn't know what to do. They didn't know what kind of decisions to make. The second thing we realized is if we wait until they don't make the grade they need in those key courses, it's too late to have the conversation with them. It's simply too late. So this fall, we're replicating that, except we are looking at incoming freshmen whose predicted grades are not going to be where they ought to be. Now that doesn't mean they won't surprise us. There will be some folks that surprise us, but through our predictive analytics, we are contacting the students who are predicted not to do well enough in the key courses for the major that they've declared. We're looking at 75 of these students this time. We have a little changing in staff, so we're going to look at 75 of these students, and then by December, I'll be able to tell you what happened to these students. Here's one thing we know. Our advisors already have engaged in more advising meetings than last year. Our advisors They're working through the stages of grief. And here's some interesting things if you are working on a redirect program on your campuses. Not only do students need to know how to put a dream to rest and find a new one, they need to know how to tell their family members they've made this decision. Because most of them are upset about it themselves, and communicating that information to the important people in their lives is very, very difficult and a stumbling block. So there's a little piece of preliminary information that we've learned in our redirect efforts, that not only do students need help making a different decision, they need help communicating that decision to those that are important to them. So hopefully you can learn a little bit from that. We talked a little bit earlier about careers, and I heard students talk about careers and how advisors didn't know about careers. And I think that's a very good point. Freshman advisors may or may not know about careers, especially the ones that the students are interested in knowing about. Here are some of the challenges. Some students come to our institutions absolutely ready to be matched with their academic advisor in their discipline. And we shouldn't block that. We should let that happen. But some of them come to us not ready at all, and they actually need to be moved into a meta major. Or some students come and we think they're directly matched, and in fact they're not. So how are we dealing with this at Austin Peay? We are working with this. Most of you all probably have a University Success course. Do you all have such a thing, like a University 1000 course? We are handling or doing our best to handle some of this career exploration in that particular course. These students have to do a research assignment, and the research assignment that we ask them to do across the entire campus, every one of these courses, is a career research paper. Part of that is to explore a career, find out things like, where can I work if I want this job? What kind of money can I expect to make? What kind of education will I need? Will it need to be bachelor's, master's, doctoral prepared? What do I need to do? So they learn a little bit about their major while they're learning how to construct a research paper. So they do their research in the library. We give them a lot of resources. They utilize ONET. And at the end of this experience, we hope that they've got a research paper that informs them of what their intended future career is. What happens at the end of that project in this class? These classes are fairly small classes, 20, 25 students. We sit around the table and we talk about them. So do you still want to be this? And about half the time after the research, the answer is no. I do not want to be this. Well, there's one option off the table. And probably if you don't want to be that particular thing, you might not even want to be in that particular grouping of majors. So one of our first steps is to help our freshmen explore what they think they want to do in a fairly rigorous way. We don't let them use, it's a research paper. They can't use Wikipedia or what their friend thinks. They have to find some valid sources. They have to talk to some people in the field, and they've got to use some pretty extensive research skills in determining what these different careers look like. So there's another way that we address careers. Now, I will tell you what we're not doing well. If the student says, I don't want to be that, there's not a plan B. We don't have a plan B yet. There's not a second, can we go through this again? What we want to happen is we would love for the student to say, hey, I went through this research process on this particular career and I found out I didn't want to be this. Maybe I need to use some of those same resources to try to find out and explore what I do want to be. I don't know definitively if that's happening. We would love for that to happen, but it's not being monitored or tracked at all. So we have a distinct need for career information for our discipline advisors and for our students. It's not necessarily clear. And there are some majors that students and maybe even some of our faculty don't know what kinds of jobs can emanate from those particular majors. There are some majors that we think are dead-end majors, or we describe them as dead-end majors, and they are not necessarily dead-end majors. Languages and literature often is accused of that, sometimes some of our social sciences, but the truth is there are skills earned in these particular majors that translate into jobs and into job skills. And that message needs to be more broadly spread across our campuses. So